concept. So I have slides that would definitely encourage on how you could go through, but this is what my first photography looked like, okay, versus how my photography have improved over the years, okay? So I started, give me a second, I will show you another one. So in 2009, sorry, this was also my college concept, okay? So at that time, I was trying to learn what was composition. At that time, you can clearly see there's a lot of colors going on around this, right? And in photography, people love colors, okay? At the same time, I was overwhelmed with colors. It's pretty obvious that I'm wearing still a lot of colors, but at that time, I was wondering what colors complemented each other. So when we first start out, immediately, we don't take into consideration the colors that go into photography, or how do you compose this using it as a technique, right? So when I saw these, at first, visually at that time, people go like, yeah, you're great. But now if someone reviews my work over time in this century of 2023, right, they'll be like, oh, that's way too many colors. I don't know if I should focus on the plate. I don't know if I should focus on the food. I don't know if I should focus on the background at the time. A lot of things are going on and it becomes a little bit more complicated, right? So it looks like a very overwhelming photo. So at that time, I thought, great, I produced photos that look really great. All I was bothered was about colors at that time. I didn't bother about how composition played an important part in my photography. I just wanted to take the food against pretty background, against pretty colors. That was the main concept after that, right? And then of course, I was trying to be all very artsy-fartsy, where I decided to create food using different flags as well. So this was for a company that I did my thesis on, and it was a company that was doing their rebranding as well in terms of their photo, because back then their photos was just a photo against white background, and then they would just put the name of the food, and it was like as though I was looking at a menu on their posters. So this is what I proposed to them, and I said, you know what, you had a fusion of Indian and Iranian or Persian food over it. Why don't I make food art? So I went into food art as well and started creating that, and I thought the use of colors was great, but again, it was so overwhelming for the client. The client wanted to just see the food, right? So this, I wanted to let you know, what did not pass. This unfortunately did not pass with the client. It passed internally, meaning if the client didn't have photos of the food, he would use my photos to show it, right? He just wanted plain photos where it was just photos in against a white background. That was his main purpose. Like, as though e-commerce was very popular back then, but he wanted to do that as well. And then of course, I started shooting out for resorts. It was already styled at the moment. All I had to do was just shoot it. My concept was not trying to style it, was not trying to compose it or whatsoever, right? And then I started shooting for, clearly you can see me in the ads. This is way back then where my hair color was my original hair color. But ideally, I started learning how to use the lenses back then. What kind of macro lenses were there? What kind of lenses were fit for the food? So I started experimenting in zoomed in options in trying to portray food photography. So, and at that time, I was using a one light system. I was completely focused with either using natural light or a one light system. And at that point, I was like, you know what, I need to start learning more into lighting, okay? Where can I do that? And then that's when YouTube came. So if anyone asked me, oh great, you're a photographer, which university did you graduate from or you learned? I graduated from the University of YouTube. That's where I learned all my photography, my hair and makeup, and everything else involved in between, right? So then I went, in 2016, I went to Croatia recently, not 2016, 2015, I went to Croatia, and that's when I started collaborating with people in their businesses. If I wanted to get into a country or a resort for free, I would tell them, listen, I know this is your business. I would love to help you market your business. Can I do photography for what your concept is about? So it was a concept where you take a picnic bag and you set up the entire food on a different island away from the city. And it was so amazing that I wanted to do this experience for myself, because if you were to do your experience, if it was a paid experience, it would be $1,000. That would include your flight, your your boat ticket, and your someone who would take you there and give out the food and make the food for you. So I kind of got all of that for free by saying, can I do photography for you? So I was like, I just wanted to experience that part of Croatia, and I got it for free just by doing a collaboration basis. So again, if you want to get into the business, always, there's nothing wrong in starting out with collaborations. Collaborations is your first step into getting into the food industry. I'm pretty sure that you work as a social media manager. You're lucky that you get to experience different companies approaching you for different styles, so that adds up onto your portfolio, right? Great. So let me see if everything else is there. Yes. Unfortunately, there is a massive slide here that is missing. I have no idea why. That shows over the years how my photography has improved, okay? Maybe there's a reason why it's not showing at this point, so let's move forward from that, okay? Because ideally, I wanted to let you know that I am able to create different themes for clients. Yes, I understand you as a photographer has your own style, has your own creativity, has your own unique way of producing images. But there are instances where you have to be versatile as a photographer. You cannot shoot a dark and moody photo for Hardee's or McDonald's, right? Because they always use hard light, they all use flash all over, right? Or you cannot, for a pastry shop, you cannot do always dark and moody kind of photos when the client would request for a bright and airy photo, right? So you have to learn how to be versatile in creating different styles, different lightings, and different compositions for photos. So this is what I was going to say. So let's start off from here. All right. So if those of you are starting out, okay, with your own setup, and you have, I wouldn't say no money, but you would have little to a very tiny, slim budget in investing on your photography. I started off doing food photography using a do-it-yourself system. What this means is all of these backgrounds that you see right now are something that you can purchase, but what are the less cost-efficient options out there into creating a setup that you won't have to spend a lot, but you can charge a lot as well while giving it to your clients, right? So my gear setup, I would usually say, is I shoot with both full frames, one mirrorless and one DSLR. So I use a Nikon D50 and the Nikon Z5. And there are 3 lenses that I abide by. And these lenses are the 24-70 for wider shots or flat lay shots from the top. And then I use 85 if I want to focus on a certain feature, okay? Not that the 105 doesn't do the same, because it does focus, because it is a fixed and prime lens. Both of these are 85 and 105, but if you've noticed, my aperture in the 85 is a 1.4. So if I want to focus on a certain grain or a certain texture of food, I would like to use the 85 for that with a little bit of a background. It doesn't mean that I'm going fully or entirely macro on it, but the idea is the 105 is there to do the macro shots for me, right? I can take that distance as well away from it and still be able to shoot it with a background, but ideally the 85 is supposed to be something that I like to give in a little bit more details and a little bit more background to it. And then of course, I use a trusty 5-in-1 reflector. We both know the reflector has 2 different sides, but if you open up in the center, I don't know if there's a reflector here. Is there a reflector here? Is there a reflector here? I could quickly show. The middle part of the reflector, the bone itself, have you noticed that it's a translucent white bone? This is something I would use completely for diffusing light, diffusing hard light, diffusing a light that I want to create into some softness. So that is what I use the reflector bone for in the center. Apart from that, I could use an additional reflector to bounce in more light if I'm working with tight spaces or small spaces. And if I want to use the gold reflector to give it a little bit more warmth, and the silver giving it more cool respectively, right? Now, in terms of video, okay, so this is my video. Give me a second. Why is that? Yeah. So this is my video gears, my food videography gears. is when I use, I'm pretty sure you can see the Nikon Z30. Is this the Z30 here? Correct. Okay, great. So if this is going on for live, you can see how compact and small that is right now. Is really, really good if you want to start using it for videos as well, okay? This is a crop frame, however, but that doesn't mean it can stop you from creating more content. A crop frame is equally good as a full frame, but of course a full frame gives you more options in editing it in RAW. Now in the crop frame, this would be really, really helpful if you want to create smaller videos for social media, because right now social media is expanding its size up to 4K at the moment with kind of 4K videos that can be integrated on social media. But now, if you want to start off with 1080p, this is a camera as well that can work for you. Ideally, you can use it for vlogging because this is meant to be a vlogging camera. So for those of you who attended the vlogging session, know that I've been using this for vlogging for the Z30. And it helps because you can flip the screen all the way in the front. So when you're talking about food vlogs, yeah, exactly. When you're talking about food vlogs, you can see yourself happen. And then if you're taking photos as well, you can flip it to a direction that you can actually see the food being taken. Whether it's taken from the top, so the food is right here, or you're taking it in as a straight angle shot. So that was the best part about the LCD flippable screen, as you can see here. And then, of course, while you're talking, it eye tracks it. So when you're talking about food, it can immediately detect the food and a human being as well. And then, of course, you have your option with using your smartphone as well. So what I'd use my smartphone for is either getting the compositions right and then clicking it with the lighting. I get it right first and then I use my phone. Otherwise, I use my phone as behind the scenes video. So I hook up my phone onto one side and then I try to show exactly how I created the photo. So that's what I usually use for. If not, I use the same camera as well for behind the scenes. Okay, so now we have this. We have a food photography setup where I usually say that it's so important to invest on a tripod. Okay, yes, you can definitely do freehand. There's nothing wrong with it, but the idea is that when you want to get that sharp image without any movement into your photos, you definitely have to invest in a tripod, right? So if that is the one most expensive investment, let that be your tripod, okay? Your camera, you can still create beautiful photos using your smartphone, using a cropped camera, using a full frame camera, but if your investment has to be good, invest on a really sturdy tripod. Something that will not allow you to fall, let your camera or your phone fall onto the food, okay? It has to be so sturdy that it has, of course, really sturdy legs. And then in the middle, I'm pretty sure you could see that, so there are other things as well on Amazon that you can find that can hold your phone, okay? A multi-purpose tripod that can hold your camera and your phone, okay? Depending on the head. And then you also have, give me a second, yes, this. So you also have a tripod with an extender, okay? With a boning extender or something like that, exactly. They're here. Okay, because I believe this is a tripod. I feel like I'm doing marketing for you guys. All right. As you can see, you can hook up several cameras as well. 2 other cameras, right? Am I right? 2 other cameras into this, okay? So imagine hooking up one BTS camera and then one actual photo camera to this. So this is so important in terms of flat lay. If you want to take it on top, your camera is positioned in a way that it looks down and this is your product or your food, right? So something like this is so efficient because this comes as an extra thing. So again, something as an investment that you would have to get to pay. Otherwise, you have a tripod that you invest with a multi-head, okay? This is a ball mount head that can be movable in different directions. So if the camera is, I was going to say, do you have a ball mount here? So it's a camera mount that you can move your camera facing downwards, okay? Yes, exactly. So this is a simple ball mount head, okay? So you can move it, I'm gonna say now here, wait. Ow! I'm sorry, it is too tight at the moment. Yeah, it is. Look at us ladies struggling with this. Okay, ideally, I wanted to move the ball mount. Yes.
remove this?
No, I want to move the ball mount. The ball mount, yeah. Yes, okay. So yeah, that's it.
Let me just tighten it. So that
Perfect.
it'll be easy for you.
All right. So if there's anything else you would add on to a tripod is making sure that you have mobility with your photos, all right? So this ball mount here, as you can see, there should be, yeah.
For the horizontal,
No, here.
this is for the...
No, I'm losing it.
This one, this is for the...
No, it was this one. There you go. Okay, my bad. All right, so the reason why you have to have a little bit of a mobility with your camera is so that you can tilt it downwards. So this is tilting it downwards in a way that you're not using an extender, but you can still use a ball mount to take photos that are vertically facing down 90 degrees, right? And then the fact that you can even place it straight, okay, for more straight angle shots, okay? And the fact that you can absolutely move it around depending on the direction you want, okay? If you want it even higher, you can tilt it even higher, so your camera is tilting at a certain angle of 45 degrees as well, right? So this is something I would also highly suggest getting with the tripod is a movable ball mount. So you can see that here as well, that it has 3 different heads, and for video, it comes with a separate handle. All right, you can still use the same ball mount head, but with the handle in for video, it's something that helps you swivel to create a nice little pan movement. So something that you can move very slowly from left to right, right? But then otherwise, this is as good as it can get when it comes to taking your classic food shots. Not unless you are experimental and you want to like save up money to buy your first ball mount head, okay? There are cheaper options on the market over on Amazon that you can do. But then if you want to go the most cheapest way out, I'm pretty sure that, let me see if it is here. Okay, no, it's not here.
iBrandConnect.
I said that, no, I said, of course.
So.
Am I not doing this? Am I not? I said the option, okay? Yeah. The option of it, as you can see, I will show you another photo where you have to stand on top of the, invest in a ladder, okay? If you want to take your 90-degree shots flat lay, invest on a ladder, take it manually, just make sure that you are not shaking your hands a lot, okay? We want clear, crisp photos for food because, you know, we eat with our eyes first, right? So the photos have to be as crisp as it can be viewed on the camera. Wow. All right, for some reason it's there, all right. Okay, so the others would be food photography backgrounds, all right? Now, if it is the ProMed ones that you're looking into, okay, you can feel free to ask Shaji here over here how much each background would do. But ideally, when I started out, now this is an exception here, okay, because I have to talk about my story. When I started out, I started using chart papers. Do you know what chart papers are, right? Great. And then if you go and Google how to create backgrounds, it will, and if you have a painting bone in you, you can go ahead and create your customized backgrounds as well, just by simply painting, creating a grunge pattern, crumpling it so that it creates a lot of texture for your background. But if because and how I started out initially was just investing in buying chart paper that was like a mere, what, 1 dirham or 2 dirham back in the day. Now it's like 7 dirhams at this point. Ideally, you would be using this paper background, and then you have these backgrounds, which are the PVC backgrounds. So the only difference between a paper and the PVC is one of them is waterproof. Okay, so ideally, when you're doing a lot of shots that would contain spillage, or shots that you know would condense really badly in terms of photo because of how harsh or how hot your lights are, a PVC background is the most optimal option right now, because at that moment you wouldn't have to. It would be an easy option to wipe out. For me, with paper backgrounds, I have to make sure that I buy maybe 6 or 7 of the same paper background in case water condenses on it at the moment. So you don't want those water spill marks. So these are your other options of PVC backgrounds where they are waterproof and you can just easily wipe off any smudge, any leakage, and any water content onto it. So there you see, you have the PVC boards as well that is available right in front of you that you can go ahead and test. How many different boards do you have and PVC papers do you have in the moment? Different variations. Yeah. Is it more than 100?
We have plenty of them out there. Like they are double-sided, and we have the hard ones as well.
Correct. So if you can see,
Like this.
can I just take, oh, this is my phone. Oops. All right. So these are double-sided, as you can see. So two different types of different backgrounds. One of them is in this nice little black marble look, and then one of them is in like a dark blue marble look. So these are the PVC backgrounds that have double-sided. I'm pretty sure it has the same as well for the foam boards. Yes, exactly. Just different directionals for the foam boards.
Just a second. Yeah. So now we got these backgrounds recently, and during this show we are selling this at 50 dirhams. These kind of backgrounds, and these ones 100 dirhams, and it comes with a small clip also to make it perpendicular. Yeah. Thank you.
So you can see that if you buy the boards, it comes with the clip. Is that an additional add-on, Shaji? Shaji, is that an additional add-on that you pay, or it comes with it already?
If they buy 2 of them, you'll get that free.
Okay, great. So you heard him. You heard it here live. If you buy 2 boards, you get the clip for free, okay? Now, if you were starting out on your own, understand that you have to do it all manually, okay? So you will have to invest in these little clamps out there. You get the plastic one, you get the metal clamps. And of course, with these kind of foam boards, you have to find a way to have them stand erect, if not hold them up together. So it's a good thing that these boards, if you buy them, you get the little connector is what you call it, the connector to have these 2 boards. Otherwise, you'd have to use this option to come up with. So I would say that usually these were my mounts back then. So either I have a T-stand. Have you heard of a T-stand, right? So you have your background stand here that has 3 areas. Can you see it? It's right on the top, and it goes all the way up and then down. So you have 2 vertical stands and 1 horizontal. That is your full background. But then there's another option where you have a T-stand. Particularly, it's just a bone of a tripod, and it has a T-based bone where you actually can host or mount a background, right? So this is sort of smaller and tighter areas. If you have a T-stand, that's something great that you can host it. And then, of course, back then you would use the most creative ways of finding what your mount is. So it was either have you seen these metal dish racks that you can get in Daiso and all that stuff? So I used that to hold my foam boards, if not, and then these holder mounts as well back then to hold in the lights. If not for the lights, position the reflector in a way. If not for the reflector, holding up a board, basically. So again, this is like a whole do-it-yourself section if you don't have any of these connectors. Now that it's great that they have these connectors at the moment, right? So what else? Right, okay. So moving forward this can be used the same for as food and product, okay? Ideally, you would use a full white setup if you want to do e-commerce or you want to sell it onto a menu item, all right? So for those who are shooting food against a colored background, okay, sometimes I'm pretty sure you see the menu, they would require an image of just the food. They don't want it with anything else so that they can apply their own background. They can put it against against the color of their choice on their menu items. So ideally, if you have to start out, sorry, who is Lenovo? Okay. You start off with creating a setup that can actually create a light setup over there, okay? So this is a do-it-yourself setup. You have stuff like this that are available or something that you can be made, okay? So if you were really just starting out and you don't want to spend and you know that you have this equipment out there, okay? The idea was basically, you know, a cardboard box. We have four areas of a cardboard box. If you slash out one, you make sure that you create these holes, okay? These square holes. And what I would use is baking paper or wax paper. That's right, okay? So what it does is, why the baking paper or wax paper is because it gives you that soft diffuse light that you want to. And the idea is that you would be using maybe multiple lights, if not for one, just to create that whole round effect. So either this way you don't have to spend on buying expensive lights, but you can use the existing light that you have or ambient lighting, or even lamps that you can just get off of IKEA as well. right? So that was the concept of it, and then you have a little paper that you mount in that can slide down, and then have your product over there. If not your product, your food, right? So if this is something that you would want to understand, that this is a 3-light setup and that's a 2-light setup. The idea of using this paper on the top is to bounce back light back into the product, right? So it's not an entire light that you're facing on top of the product, but you can just bounce it back to create a little bit more softness. Then of course, this is something that you could buy off as well, but ideally showing you the different types of a DIY structure to create food photos for e-commerce or for the menu is what I would call it as, right? So this is what I was talking about, invest in a ladder. If you want to do it by yourself, you don't want to have the tripod with you at that moment, go ahead and invest a ladder, or a step stool is what they would call it. A step stool has 2 or 3 steps onto it that you can have. But of course, if your table is this high, you might need a higher ladder, of course. So ideally, if you want to start off, I would say use as much as possible of natural light when starting off with your food photography. Just understand the concept of light photography, natural light, before understanding how you can manipulate artificial light and other lighting agreements out there, right? As you can see, this is why you would need a tripod. So in the tripod area, you have it shooting at different straight angles. So you have one that's shooting within the line of the table, okay? And then you have one that's looking down, which is a 22 or 20 degree is what I would call it. And then a 45 degree downwards, right? And if you were to do flat lays, you end up using a 90 degree facing down, either using this kind of structure, facing down, or you manually stand up and do a 90 degree, right? But the food at this point would be so much closer to you to be able to create a 90 degree photo. Otherwise, you'd be creating a 67 degree photo where the food's slightly above you, and then you just create that shot. Okay, and let's see. So someone asked me this question before, and they go like, what's the difference between a smartphone and a DSLR when I take photos using either one of these devices, right? So of course, we know that the smartphone is easy to use, and it's you invested in it, you had a budget for it, right? So how can I convince you to get into buying a camera? Now the thing is, with the DSLR, it is a dedicated equipment product for photography, right? And the fact that you can manually set in your options and manually do these certain focusing points. I know the smartphones right now are getting more innovative, more AI integrated into it, and more smarter at this point. That's the reason why it's called smartphones. But there's always something so beneficial about using an actual DSLR, that it is more professional, the photos turn up more professional, you can manipulate each and every setting, and when it comes to post-processing, you have a file which you either shoot in either RAW or in JPEG that you can manipulate after in post-processing, right? Because in the photos that you get on your smartphone, it's a stamped image of whatever filter you throw on, however your settings that you've set it into initially, and then you create this and then you create a photo. You may not be able to manipulate each and every detail, unlike how you can manipulate it over on a camera. So at this point, everyone says that yes, the phone is an all-time solution. All-in-one product solution. So how does it differ, right? So with the smartphone, you need to make sure your setup is all set for you, right? That's why I talked about having to prioritize your lighting, your background, your composition techniques, and making sure that your post-processing is taken care of. That is when you use your phone. But if you are that type of person that wants to manipulate each and every detail, like remove something not there in the photo, or you want to manipulate colors, all right, this is where you have the camera in. I'm pretty sure that if you've experienced your camera, you can go through different picture control settings at that time. You can change it to monochrome, you can change it to the vivid style, you can change it to any color that you can set it before as well. It's not like when you take a photo and then you slap onto a filter. You can do that as well, but that's something that your smartphone can offer it for you. But if you want to do it even as well on your camera, you can set it ahead of time where you tamper or you set your picture control on each of your cameras, so it kind of differs on each model of your camera. But in Nikon, you have a picture control setting that you set it to a different tones of color that you want to shoot at, and then you can experiment with that. So it can process that as for you as a JPEG or a RAW format, and that you can tamper around with it. So you've already got like one setting done. All right, let's figure it out and post-process then. Okay, so this for me is my most favorite topic. So who here knows about color theory? Okay. Why do you know about color theory?
I'm an architect.
Okay, all right, so you're an architect. Okay, great. But who here is the first time dealing with color theory? So nice to see more men join this. Yay!
We need to give this back.
Okay.
So I just borrowed this, okay?
Great. Yay, so we have a pastry as an option for us to shoot, okay? Note that they have two other backgrounds, and I would like to also introduce, if I have time, a more DIY version of this background. Can I? Shaji, can I introduce a DIY? Okay, great, okay? When I mean DIY, I mean,
I would
yeah,
give
sure,
1 minute.
yeah. When I mean DIY, I mean actually going to one of these day-to-day stores and getting my background set, and I can show that to you as well.
Hello, yeah. So DIY, like I'm also a big supporter of that, because you don't need to spend a lot of money in your, or anyhow you are using expensive cameras, right? But at the same time, like we have plenty of equipments, photography equipments, which makes your life so easy. For example, like, we talk about tripods. So you can find tripods at 50 dirhams. This tripod is 2,800 dirhams. There is a reason behind it. Okay, so as iBrandConnect, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Shaji, and we started this company 4 years back. And we are into the passionate photographers as well as content creators. Continuously, we do many events. So this is our 172 event in the last 2 years. So we are equipment sellers, photography equipment sellers. Anything and everything related to photography equipments, you can always connect with me. And it's not just that, like if you have some doubts or something, like equipment suggestions, also can connect with me, because I have brilliant influencer gang in my database. For example, for the 172 events, we did it with the support of 105 people from 27 different nationalities. So anything related, for example, architectural photography, you can contact me. Food photography, you can contact me. Like real estate, travel. What is your special one? No, it's stop motion. Yeah. So there are plenty of database of great individuals are with us along with the equipments. Okay, make some DIY, but buy things from us. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Also, we got one cake, from IRAMTech, because I was just going through, and then they give me a cake to shoot pictures. So when you tag iBrandConnect, Nikon, ICCA, IRAMTech also, and plus LA.
I'm going to put this here.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah. Thank you, dear.
All right. Thank you so much for the iBrand intermission. All right. I believe that there's every time I speak of a topic, there's going to be definitely a product that's going to be promoted in between. This is how usually workshop kind of works out. So the reason why I talk about color theory is because it's so important to know how you're taking, especially when you're dealing with food, how to minimize your mistakes. And this is how I would love to teach you about it, is because when you're dealing with color theory, you try to avoid being overwhelmed by a lot of colors, okay? People, yes, will like the idea that there's so many colors, but at the same time, you lose the focus, which is the main thing, which is your food. So by understanding color theory, you get to understand how to compose your image and how to actually accentuate the food in that color theory as well, right? So first up is basically what is called analogous, all right? What is analogous in the color theory, okay? Feel free to correct me if you feel, because at this point I am only in, there is an advanced version of this, much more advanced, okay? And then there is the basic, which is what I'll be introducing to you. So feel free to have your input if in case I go wrong or sway away from it, but in analogous, okay, what it is you have your color theory where black is your center, all right, and white is your center as well. That means black and white can match any color in the color theory, whether that's the reason why we all have like darker hair, and the same thing that we can wear any color that goes along with it. But our skins are completely different, and this is why you have special analysts out there, color analysts that figure out what colors suit you best in terms of your skin color. Same thing goes with food, right? So if you've noticed that in analogous, okay, it is basically two colors next to each color wheel, right? It kind of evokes that whole nature feel about having two colors close to each other within the color wheel. So if you wanted, if we're talking about blue and green, look at the photo of how it's represented in blue and green. This is a kiwi trifle, and at the moment, what can you see is blue in this image? The background, correct, right? So it works in harmony, and that's why it's called analogous, because it's the colors that are the closest to each other in the color wheel. It's the colors that complement each other as well. And that's the reason why it looks quite pleasing to the eye, and that's the reason why we have the sky as blue and the earth as green, right? Now, if we were to take two other instances of analogous, and when we say analogous, more than just the two colors, we also have this part as considered as analogous. Anything that follows it within the stream. So as you can see, the color theory of having yellows, oranges, all the way to reds and darker pinks or magenta over here is all embodied over here at this point. So you can see the yellow part of the insides of the rhubarbs, okay? You can see the orange parts of the sides of the rhubarbs that are even darker and deeper, because we know that we are not made out of one color, we're just made out of a plethora of colors at the moment. And then of course you can see the outer skin colors that follow within the analogous theory is the fact that it goes in harmony from the warmest color of the cycle wheel, right? So it has, you can see that here, that the darker pinks are even embodied in the photo, and so is the reds as well. So the image gives it that whole warm feel of the analogous. So then we have the complementary, right? Complementary, as you can see, are the opposite colors of the color wheel. With blue, you have yellow. So can you tell me with red, what do you have as a complementary color? Green, correct, okay? So like I said, it's the most opposite color of the color wheel. So in this diagram, you can see that we've definitely used yellow and blue. So what is blue here? The background. And what is yellow over here? Exactly, the food itself, right? The donuts itself, the glazed donuts that you can see is yellow. So what it is, it's complementary colors try to give you that contrast between cool and warm. So by just contrasting a warmer product with a cooler background or a cooler object or prop, we can feel the warmth of that product or the food. So at the moment, do you think I'm analogous or complementary just by wearing my outfit? What do you think? Sorry? Analogous. So you think it's analogous because you're looking at the top part of the top part of my body. Because yes, that is right. You are right. If you're just sectioning out the top part of my body, I am analogous because I follow the whole yellow, orange, light orange, and pink theory, right, in my hair. But if you look at the overall image, I'm what you can call the complementary colors because I've included blue over here. But then if you go in a little bit more deeper, it's called split complementary. Why split complementary is because I've included the pink in it. Because remember, they're opposite colors, but why pink? Because that's what split does. It chooses one color from the opposite angle as well, just to add on to that complementary, right? I just came up with this now, I swear. I didn't prepare about my outfit, but yeah. Great. So here's another example of another complementary color, right? From the opposite side of the wheel of green, we have pink, right? So as you can see here, the background itself is green. We have certain elements with the edamame beans over here being green. We have the lime that has that essence of green. And then what turns pink here are those little dragon fruit pigs, right? So as you can see in this noodle, that the pinks and the greens, they complement each other so well that even using a greener background still make the image pop, right? So sometimes people ask, what if I accidentally use a blue background, right? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in using different backgrounds. It's entirely up to your creativity of how you create your photos, right? But if someone wants to talk about viewing an image harmoniously and viewing the color that it's soothing through the eyes, and the fact that you want that image to strike out, I would say use the complementary colors, because you're already dealing with way too many colors. Focus on at least maybe 2 or 3 colors is what I would focus on. If it has more than 3 colors, it's already a little bit more complicated. When I say more than 3 colors, more than 3 opposite ends of the colors is what I was talking about, okay? And then we have what you can call monochromatic. What is monochromatic is the color tonal variation of a single tone. So that means in green, you have different variations of green. In pink, you have different variations of pink, and in red, you have different variations of red. And that's why you have monochrome. I'm pretty sure the last time they saw me, I was in a full monochrome on red. It was a red on red on red on red, and the only thing that was there was purple, so they were like, oh, you're just way too colorful, and I just stood out, right? Exactly, it is trending now, especially with monochrome colors. People come up with different shades of red or different shades of green that they wear that complements them best. But the idea also follows into food or product photography, right? So in this image, you can see 3 different types of green except for the plate, because the plate is a dark black image. But then when light kind of reflects back to it, it makes it look green at this point. So again, you are not only changing, or you're not only dealing with the color of your color theory of the food, but you're also dealing with every other surrounding elements around the food as well. Another example of monochromatic would be this. So once you cook the pears, it becomes a golden orange or golden brown. So in that monochromatic tone of orange, we have different variations of orange that you can see. And clearly now you can start seeing the plate has changed its color, right? Just because it's been cooked out, it's been spread out, it starts looking like it as though it has like rust orange over it, right? So again, that still complements an image, whether you use the colors of a complementary or within the monochromatic tone of range, right? Any questions on this? Okay, great. So I'd like you to see how well you can style this food, okay? I know we don't have many styling props, but the idea is I want you to use different backgrounds, because this is something quite a challenge. Like, what would be the best backgrounds that you can use to complement this cake, right? So you have a background, a darker background, and a whiter background at this point. So with the color tones, what would you think would be best, that goes best with the cake? And you can see the cake right now is a bright red and white at the moment, with little efforts of pink into it. How would you use a color background with it, right? So now here's about light. I'm going to run through this topic about light because I feel like we're already very close to our time. Is what you need to know about light is you need plenty of it, okay? If you have the ambient light with you right now, by all means utilize ambient lighting. Our cameras are smart these days that can detect the ISO of the lighting according to how the room is, and you can manually set that light as well. If you need more lights, iBrand has more lights over here that you can play with, and they're mostly continuous lights at the moment, and video lights. I would suggest that if you do start off with continuous lighting as your first artificial light, and then natural lighting with the God-given daylight sun. Okay, now for some reason this is still done. Yeah, okay. So ideally with the, just avoid, this is way too textual, okay, because this is based on my previous presentation. But ideally, if you were to deal with a natural light setup, I would suggest that you avoid direct sunlight. Some people like harsh lightings. There's nothing wrong about liking harsh lightings. It adds more essence and more texture to your photos. But ideally, if you want to shoot in sunlight and you want to shoot food, I would suggest avoid doing it direct sunlight, okay? This is as you start out. You have to learn and understand the theory theory of light as well to be able to see which complements your food at the moment, right? So for example, you have a cake, but you use harsh light. Then every pour or every mistake or every icing mistake that you see on the cake would be emphasized. Unless the cake is made perfectly out of the oven and you have a perfect, what do you call it, piping artist, then go ahead and use hard light. It's usually used for fashion photography, for high key product photo shoots. By all means, you can use that. But ideally, if you want to start off, try starting off with lights that are more diffused against a softer version of the sunlight at the moment. So in this area, as you can see, there is a baking paper, okay? The most cost-efficient baking paper. If not, you have shower curtains as well. Buy the most plain, translucent shower curtains if you don't have a diffuser, and make that as your diffuser within your window light. So if you have a large window, if you have a large window at your place, then by all means set a table that's close to the window, prop up a baking paper, prop up series, because the baking paper is not going to show lines on it. You can tape it however you want to cover that area of light, that window space. But then, of course, if you want something quite larger, then the shower curtain is there. If not, then you go ahead and buy the diffuser that iBrand here has with the 5-in-1 diffractor, okay? So when I mean with the 5-in-1 reflector, I also mean this. This is what the bone is inside of the 5-in-1 reflector. So if you take out the one that has the silver and the gold inside, you have this middle bone that has a translucent effect. This can be used as well for diffusing the light. So as you can see, the background itself is also white, and we use a reflector, okay, the diffuser of the reflector bone in here. That could be it also. It deflects light as well. And then, of course, if you want to bounce back that light, you use an extra foam board, right? An extra foam board that either bounces off light, okay, or a black foam board that basically sucks in all the light, right? So if you were to use this, I would say, oh yeah, it's the deflection reflector. This is the difference to show you what a diffuser and a flag is, okay? We call the flags something that cuts out and blocks out light. That's what a flag is, okay? Because ideally you use a black foam board, if not a black foam board, a black cloth. Okay, in this instance here, you can see how huge this reflector is. The black side part of the reflector and of the 5-in-1 reflector has a black side to it as well. So that blocks out light. And then the bone of it is what you can use to diffuse light and basically soften the light in terms of photos, right? So anyone here knows the difference between hard and soft light when it comes to, all right, what is hard and soft? What is hard and soft light?
Hard light is more of highlights. The shadows are very hard when you use hard light. Soft light is more diffused and looks better on the image.
Yeah, okay, so she said that it's harsher lights, harsher shadows. It has highlights as well. Oh, okay, sorry. Would you like to say that again? Just say it again for the sake of saying it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hard light is harsh light, and it creates more shadow. Unless and until you are going for a very dramatic image, you use softer. Soft light is soft light, and you have product detail whatever you are photographing. Yeah.
Great. So she really said that if you want to have more details of the photos, you use the harsh light as well, okay? So this is very simple in terms of product or food photography between harsh and soft light, all right? Is in hard light, it is a smaller size light, okay? It is almost as if it was one directional. So it gives you a smaller size light, okay? And that's what causes all of these harshness of shadows. It gives you a one direction of it, okay? If not a one direction, it's a fewer directions than it is. Because if it's a soft light, as you can see, the shadows have disappeared on the soft light, correct? So in the soft light, it means that it is a larger source of light, and the fact that with the soft light, that means it comes in from different direction. It's multi-directional when it comes for softer light, right? entirely depends on how you want to introduce your image, whether you like it hard light or soft light. There is no restriction on how you want your image. If you're the person that loves hard light, go ahead and create a hard light photo. But at the same time, you have to understand the tone and image you want to create for the photo. If you're working for a brand and the brand goes like, I don't like hard lights, I don't like shadows, what are you going to do? Then you'd have to convert that entire image to soft light. Reduce the shadows by creating a larger light, which creates soft diffuse light, and it's multi-directional. So that means it spreads out all and everywhere, right? So that's the only difference. The same thing applies for when you add a human element. Okay, so now if you're adding a human element, understand how it also affects light. How the light affects the human elements. So as you can see in harsher lights, you can see every pore and detail with this, okay? So it's not the most flattering light. You can use it outside in the sun for fashion shows if the photo is all the way zoomed out, okay? Ideally, if you were dealing with the human elements in your videos and photos, understand that harsher light may not be a kind of light that flatters someone. It creates the contrast in shadows. It creates, as you can see, that little shadow, that triangular shadow that's caused here by her nose and everything, okay? And understand that it also emphasizes on texture, pores, and every detail on it. So if you want to use hard light, understand that this is what hard light does. However, soft light gives you that whole, it evokes that source of femininity, you know, it creates that softer light. It makes your skin look softer. It makes your eyes even brighten up. There's no additional shadow that comes in and creates unnecessary shadowing on your nose or under your chin, but it looks like it's all evened out, okay? So again, understand if you want to if you want to integrate a human element into your photos and videos, what kind of lighting would suit best both food and a human element? Okay, so this is something fairly new. Have you heard of diffused and specular light? Anyone here's heard of diffused and specular light? Yes. That is absolutely correct. It is very obvious that when you diffuse the light, you make the light softer, okay? Ideally, what it is, and I've written that entire definition here, so it pretty much stays, okay? It is not determined by the characteristics of the light, so it doesn't matter if it's hard or soft light at that point, okay? But it is by the type of surfaces it reflects on. So take into consideration, what are your additional props? What are the plates that's being used at the moment? Do you think, let me just talk. Okay, so this is plastic. I thought it was foam. And you know foam boards are usually matte. So matte kind of plates or matted kind of platings, right? Or matted boards as well, they suck up light. They don't try to reflect it back. But in the case of plastic lights, right, or anything that's glossy surface, they reflect back light. So you have to take into consideration, because in a diffuse light source, as you can see, this is a very same plate, okay? It's the same plate, but in a diffuse light source, because it's larger, it made it look softer, right? But because it is a smaller light source, when you're dealing with hard light and it's only very unidirectional or a fewer direction, it's going to give you a lot of hot spots. So it's going to reflect back. Sometimes when you take photo, you go like, oh, I see that reflection, it's bothering me. How do I remove it, right? So there is a theory that you can mix both of them, okay? It can be both diffuse and specular, but you have to understand where the direction of the light is so that it does not create these kind of hot spots that distract you away from your main image, which is the star of the image, which is your food. Right? So this is something that you take in consideration, because not many people understand the concept of diffuse and specular. When this is diffuse and this is specular, by understanding that the reflection back at you is making sure that it's just going to either ruin your image or it's just going to make lots of hot spots that may distract you from your main image. Okay? So now, as you can see, the lighting sources is pretty much the same as you can use in photography, okay? There is, you can come up with the most creative ways of putting up your lights for food, okay? But I will talk through the most basic setups of the light, okay? At this point, with backlighting setup, where is your light ideally? So with the backlighting setup, where would be your light position? Guys? Did you forget? Where would be your light? in a back lighting setup, where would be your light? Exactly, in the back, right? It's not in the front, because it's a backlighting, right? So there are food photographers that love to emphasize the image of a glass, right? With the contents inside of a glass, or the burgers, right? If you want to create a more dramatic hero image, you end up using a backlighting setup for this. So ideally, this is very straightforward, that in this setting, in this setup, you have a backlight that comes onto it. So if this is something that we push it forward, okay, if we push this table forward and we have a light from the back, that is considered a backlighting setup, okay? Now, the front lighting setup. Any idea where the light is over here? Pretty sure that it's obvious that the light is going to be in the front, okay? But now that we have it in the front, it is very optional as to where you can place the lighting in the front. It could be either in the center of the product, okay? Or it could be either towards the sides, which is either your left or your right. Okay, so this way you figure out where you want the light to come from. Do you want to make it mimic a sunlight that's coming in from the morning? So you put it onto the right. If you want to make it sunset, you put it on the left. It depends on entirely up to you. But ideally, if you want to use a front lighting setup, it is using just one light, and it differs within the positioning of your front. It also differs in angling. So in this angle, ideally we would be using a 45-degree angle here, okay? Depending on how low your food is. If you want it even in the same line of the table, by all means you can go ahead. That becomes a more dramatic shot as well, right? It becomes like a star image and a star shot. Okay. So in the concept of one light setup, okay, these are your helping numbers. So feel free to take images or photos of this on how to set up your light photo for a one light setup. In this one light setup, you definitely have a light either positioned on your right or your left, okay? Now understand that if it is a light source on its own, what light would it be producing? Anyone? What light? It would be producing hard light. On its own, it would be producing hard light because it has no diffuser. We're using a lamp, let's say we're using a lamp, it has no diffuser. So it's going to be automatically a hard light. So you start creating diffusion here. So with the 5 and 3, you can create this as a diffuser where your light is. So again, what is your diffuser panels here? You use your reflector panels, you use baking paper, you use a diffuser, like a small base diffuser reflector, diffuser thing here, right? Wherever your light is situated. What this is, it means that it's bouncing the light back off to your product. Okay? So ideally you would have some sort of evenly lit light, but of course the reflection light is not going to give you the same effect as the diffuse light. It's going to just bounce back areas where you think the shadows are quite harsh, so it just softens the shadows. All right? Now with the 2 light setup, okay? Now that we have 2 lights, what kind of light, now we're using a lamp source, what kind of light do you think these lights are emitting? Can you?
It's not working. Yes, the before image, please. If we don't put number 5, what it will be the product, the light on the product?
Hello? Yeah, okay. So if you don't put a reflector back in, we can try that out now because I'm sorry I don't have the sample photos, which I usually have, okay, is you have harder shadows already. Oh my God, okay. You have harder shadows. If you want to eliminate those shadows to make it softer, you put a reflector back into its place, all right? And then that way it softens out the shadows of that image. Because right now, if the light is on top right now, you can clearly see your shadows underneath it. But if I put a reflector over it, I'm sorry, this is the best scenario. If I put a reflector over it, it's going to bounce back light to here, and it's going to soften the shadow. All right, because what we're going to do right now is we're going to play with lights, okay? Hopefully we can do this before the next workshop starts, is to try out these different lighting modules, because this is very important for you. If we can't do color theory right now, we can play around with the given backgrounds, and we can play around with the lights. So ideally, I want you to master, if not learn something from here, is your 1 light setup and your 2 light setup. Okay, so with these 2 light setup, how would you do it? With these 1 light setup, how would you do it as well? Okay, so just going back to the 2 light setup here, both of them are 2 harsh lights, and then you need to create a diffuser over it. So this way it makes the image more softened, right? If you are that kind of person that wants hard light, by all means go ahead and hard light. But your photos are definitely going to be overexposed, over sharpened at that point, and at that point you've lost the image of your hero image, which is your food. So if you want to actually try this setup as well, we can do that with using 2 lights to see how it is, and then use a diffuser on both sides to see how it works. Okay? All right. Oops. All right, here. I don't know why it's happened. All right. So composition, all right? This happens if you're doing a lot of flat lays. If not flat lays, straight angle photos. What I would call this is a golden triangle, all right? Do you know what is triangular about this image? Anyone can say? Correct. It is the symmetry of this image that is in a triangle composition at this point. So as you can see, these are what causes the triangle symmetry over here in this image, okay? What it leads you to is this, right? Without the grid itself, it will lead you to a photo, it will lead you to immediately to the first triangle, which is your chopsticks over here. But ideally what it means is you're putting in your food in one section of the triangle. Does that make sense? I have no idea if you guys are saying yes or no. Okay, great. Okay, so that's the idea of the triangular image. As you can see, place it where the ideas of the triangles is, because in this type of composition and symmetry, we are making use of negative space, okay? Some people like putting everything onto the table and then it gets cluttered. We want to make use of this negative space and make sure that our eyes lead to the main product, which is the food, and then we can see all the props that kind of complement it. So this is what you called the golden spiral, okay? Can you tell me why it's called the golden spiral? Right? Because the way you've taken the image is the fact that it follows a spiral image that leads you to the main image. So you have all of these little props, okay? So you have your main preparation, which is the little rhubarb over here and the strawberries as little props. And then you have plates that that leads an eye towards a spiral motion here. And then the main product is basically, the main product is basically the pie over here. So which one did you see first, the pie, or did you see all of these first? The pie first, right? Because what happened is it led you through that. If I put another pie here in equal weight, you're not going to focus on the same pie. You're going to be focusing on both the pies at this point. But I want this to be a hero image. I want to focus on this pie. So my eye led me to it at this point, and that's why it's called the golden spiral. Okay, so this is called a grid composition. Who here knows the rule of thirds? Okay, wow. Clearly, the interior in you and the architecture in you is like prevailing at this point. All right, rule of thirds means, okay, so I'm just gonna go over here, mind you, if you can see it. So in your cameras, if you put up the grid, so if you open up your smartphone right now, you see a grid, right? A grid that helps you find out where your horizon is, or if your photo is straight, correct? Now, with the use of the rule of thirds, you have an image that is either all the way in this grid, okay? So it's either on the lower part of the grid or on the side of the grid, right? So the rule of third means 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 rows and 3 columns, right? And the image will be either flushed right in the bottom, or flushed right in the center or in the right, or flushed left in the center or the right. all right? Or it could be even flushed in the bottom. That's the rule of thirds, utilizing only the third part of the grid. So that's basically what the rule of third is. Now, in food or product photography, we have a grid called the phi grid. It is much similar like the rule of third grid, but ideally you'll notice, can you notice what the difference is between the rule of the phi grid? It's smaller in the center, okay? This is why I told you that I would like to use my 85mm lens or my 105 lens for specific features like this, is because in the phi grid, I get to only focus on texture. So I want people to feel, what is it that I'm focusing on? Is it a cake? Great, but what does the cake look like? It could be made out of anything, so I can feel the texture. It's almost like I'm tasting the texture, and that's what you use a phi grid rule for. And the phi grid rule only focuses on this, where everything else on your foreground and background is very blurred out. That's the only difference in the phi grid. It still follows the rule of third, but in this rule of third, you have a center focus. And that's why the center focus is very tiny, because you're limiting it to that specific feature, and that's the star of the image right there. But of course you can tell what the image is, right? It's a bundt cake, right? Okay, great. And, okay. So when I say creating a mood board, when you're dealing especially with if you are starting out with your kind of food photography, or you're dealing with a client or a brand, okay? Usually you would come up with a mood board. And what this is the fact that you have your portfolio, you have your style. But at the same time, what if a client or someone else that approaches you, or a friend, okay, please take photographs of my food business. Great. What kind of style do you want? I'm not sure. Maybe just take the photo, right? So maybe just take the photo. You would deal with your style, and then that deals with a lot of complications between you and your friend or you and your client, because once you produce an image of your style, that may not reflect this person's brand or this person's brand colors or this person's identity. That's when you come up with a mood board. So in this instance, a catering company reached out to me, and they were like, I want to take photos of all my food. Great, I have a style to it. And then you shoot, and then all of a sudden they go like, no, I don't want this. This is not my colors. This is not my style that I'm looking for. Great. So what do you show them, okay? I show them what you call is a mood board. So I tell them, listen, in a catering company, you have desserts, you have main pasta meals, you have main chicken meals, you have burger meals. Do you want it in a bright and airy setting, right? When a bright and airy setting means that the background is mostly white, all right? Can you see the image, or is it just me, right? Yeah. It's placed against a white image that only thing that you can basically focus on is the food. So the colors that embodies the food is what attracts you, and that's what I want, okay? Maybe I want a bright and airy image, or the client wants a bright and airy image. And then by adding on to all of these little props, by adding a nice little a fork and spoon, additional plates, maybe a glass or crumbs around it, ideally we're still sticking to the bright and airy, because that essence of it is just a white background, white or lighter backgrounds as this is, right? So you have that as an option for a white and airy. Are you going to create white and airy photographs? Or maybe the client wants the exact same images as you saw of the burger, pasta, and the trifle, or the pie, the strawberry pie, in a dark and moody setting. So a dark and moody setting is either having a darker background, or either you're changing up the lights, okay, to maybe just one light and make it a dark, warmer setting. So maybe the client wants a dark and moody setting, right? A dark and moody setting. And then at the same time, I'd be like, all right, great. So what happens to the catering references? Do you want, so if this was an event version and the person decided to go like, oh great, my style is a bright and airy kind of photography, right? I want that style. I want where my image is only about food. Great, I can produce the same when it comes to events. So under event photography, what would you produce in terms of this, right? So you'd be taking photos within the same bright and airy effect. Or would you be taking it in the dark and moody effect? So these are samples that you can show out and figure out what your style is, or what the kind of composition that you want. And then if you want to add in, I'll be like, all right, great, let's add in a human element into it, right? What is the human element? A hand. If not your full body, if not your face, if you're not vlogging your food, it will be a hand most definitely. So it's either people that are in the food industries as waiters, chefs, or live stations that you can have. That's the food. That's a human element into it. Otherwise, you just have it with the food, right? So again, within that same settings, what is the bright and airy settings that she chose, and then this is what the event photography for catering outside and events is like. Great. So now when it comes to video, it's pretty much the same thing. We end up creating a storyboard, okay? What it is it helps map out your thoughts. Till now and to this date, I write a lot of things. Like, clearly, I'll be frank with you, I created my presentation today morning before coming in, and that's why half of the slides are missing. But ideally, what I do is I always write out, if I can draw, what my mood board is or my storyboard is. What is basically the structure or the bone of what it is. So in here in storyboard, and the reason why I put out Canva has these templates that you can just print out and that you can draw your idea onto it. Now, if you want to draw your idea, you need to actually figure out what you want to portray in this video. Write out the story. So for example, this was an ad for a coffee shop, okay? And in the coffee shop, I just want to draw it, and if you do tend to become videographers in the future, for food, for restaurants as well, the idea is to write out scenes, okay? So it's a little bit more detailed and more into the technical side, but in the creative approach is the idea of using a storyboard is to map out your ideas. All right, great. So I want to take the outside of the location. I want to take the ambience where people are in it, okay? I want to take maybe the staff making coffee as a wide setting and maybe a close-up shot of just the coffee being poured into the cup. That's an idea. Why don't I jot that out? In this case, what I would do is, if in case you're not a person that could draw or a person that is into graphic design, I would suggest go ahead and start taking photos from Shutterstock. Okay, these are free imaging websites or global websites that, like Google, that you can take these images and drop them as your ideas into it. And then when you want to create, you know exactly what kind of scene you want to mimic, and that's the reason why you have these Shutterstock photos. Because if you type there, person pouring coffee, you'll get a million images of person pouring coffee. But which one is your style? Go ahead, pick it up and drop it into a storyboard. That's how you kind of create your storyboard in mind. So you know what the action is. It's just that you can't put it to words or you can't draw it. Use a Shutterstock image. Maybe that might define your image a little bit more, whatever's in your head. But I always say, write it out, draw it out, map it out, so you know what your storyboard or your storyline is. Okay? I'm told that it's time, so I need to run through the last few slides and then we can do theory, okay? So ideally for those of you who are starting off a structure, especially if you're doing a food vlog. So there are kind of videos that are out there, and ideally I wanted to tell you the kinds of videos that exist out there are basically the GIFs. You have animations out there that exist as well, stop motion animation. Where's Kimia right here? For food as well. You have behind the scenes, so people want to know what you do behind the scenes, and then you show the end product, okay? And then you have recipe videos, right? People want to know how you made that video, with or without the face, or just a hand. Those are recipe videos as well. Maybe video highlights of what the finished product looks like, or have any of you tried cinemagraphs? No? It's moving images, okay? It's only where everything in an image is still and one element just moves. It's kind of like me standing frozen in the frame and just my hair is flowing, okay? Some people think of that as GIFs. It is part of a GIF, but it's also called cinemagraphs, right? People do that with the food. Sometimes you have a cake and everything, and the only thing I either use a video Premiere Cut, but if you want to use the ones on the cell phone, it would be CapCut or InShot. There's also another one called VN, which I haven't put in yet, but that's also another. Great. Okay. So let's put that up, and let's move out the lights. Okay. Ritul, can I have your help? Can we have lights on either side? We can use video lights or LED lights at this point. Yeah, those lights are fine as well. Oh, thank you. Any questions while we're getting? Sorry. Any questions while we're getting the setup to work for you? Do you have any questions about the presentations? If you don't have questions, oh my God, I'm amazing. Am I? But if you have questions during the practical, by all means, ask away. Maha, what's your question? Oh, okay, so it's good. I'm sorry you came in late. I didn't.
My name's
Shadi.
Sari. Sari.
Sari. Oh, hi, Sari. Thank you for still joining us at short notice. But ideally, this is the most important one. We did color theory as well. And I'm not sure when did you walk in? When did you walk in? What part of the presentation you walked in? Because we had color theory as well that you can experiment with the backgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah, Ellie,
Yeah.
before we go for the practical, can we take a group picture? Otherwise, these guys will...
Yeah, sure. Guys, is it okay that you would like to have a group photo with us? Yeah? For those of you who are okay with taking a photo, okay, please, I'd like to have a photo with you guys here. That'd be great. Once we make you work up your blood sugar, then you can have the cake and then you won't feel cold. Come.
Come in a row.
Do you want to stand according to the colors of the rainbow since we have all yellow, blue, red again? I'm just saying color theory again. No, it would be so perfect right now. We have the warm tone and then we have the cool tones all here. No, that's really great. Yeah.
Hey.
Oh wait, you swap because then we're in the correct color tone. Yeah. Look at that. Does the photo look harmonious right now?
Jonah.
That's exactly what makes us the brighters. Yeah. Yes. Super cool. Guys, super cool is apparently 2 thumbs up, but I have 1 water bottle on the other hand.
Not joining?
Okay.
Yeah, 1 thumbs up in my case. Sorry, this is another thumb here. Super cool. Thank you, guys.
This is every time with you.
My water?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been told I don't drink enough water.
You want water more?
No, there's someone staring at me, deathly staring at me to see if my water content has been achieved throughout the day. Wait, let me finish up. So guys, the lights that we're using right now, okay, just a side note that the lights already currently have a very small diffusion cover on it, okay? So what you'd be getting more is a softer light. Unless you want a harsher light, then we end up using one of those video panels without a diffuser on it, right? So is it there or am I seeing it? So you see the little bulb over there? That's a diffuser modifier as well. The same goes with this. If you take it out entirely, if you take out the modifier, it becomes a hard light. So here at the moment, what we have is the video light. I'm so sorry. What we have is the video light, and these video lights itself has a very small diffusion onto it, so it can create softer light. If you want it to be very harsh, it becomes closer. You bring it much closer to you. But if you want it even softer, you bring it up higher, a little bit more further away from it. So this is iBrandConnect's YC Onion, okay? Feel free to ask them how to tamper with the light settings if you don't want it to come up in RGB levels, just to give you a white light. Yeah. great. So one of them is white. So again, you have an option to choose between white and airy and dark and moody, okay? Ritu, do you have tape? Do you have tape?
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah. And can I... Do you have a paper background? Where are those paper backgrounds that I can use?
You mean the sheets, yeah?
Yeah, the sheets that I saw earlier. I'm going to create a DIY setup here, okay? So I'm just going to put my laptop a little bit. Yes. With the background? Okay, let me try something fun. Okay, I'll try another one over here. Sure. Sorry, I'm just going to push this here, okay? Yeah. Where is it? Hi, Shaji. Can I use a paper backdrop for a sample?
Tell me which one.
I am looking for. Let me see what it is.
Majority of them are dark, right? This is nice. And this is also nice. I think this is the one which you have, right? This one?
Okay, can I just take two samples? So it's this one and the brown one. The dark brown one. This one, the one I'm holding. No, this one. This one, Shaji, this one, yes. Yes. Can I? Is there a white one as well?
White?
Yeah, just to show the difference. White wooden. Like white or like close to white? This one would be great. Yes. Oh no, this is too dark. It suddenly looks so dark all of a sudden. Is there another brighter one? This one. My bad.
Okay.
Can I disconnect this for a while?